She asked for space to think. I gave her room to regret. The announcement came on a Monday afternoon while I was reviewing code specifications for a client deployment, not exactly the moment you expect your marriage to implode. Stephanie walked into my home office with that particular expression I'd learned to recognize over our 4 years together, the one that said she'd already made a decision and was just informing me of the outcome. I booked a wellness retreat, she said, not looking up from her phone where she was scrolling through what appeared to be packing lists. 10 days in the mountains with Vanessa and the college group. We leave Wednesday morning. I stopped typing midline, my fingers hovering over the keyboard as I processed what she'd just said. 10 days. 48 hours notice. No discussion, no consultation, just a declaration delivered with the casual tone someone might use to announce they were grabbing takeout for dinner. Wednesday, I repeated, turning in my chair to face her fully. That's 2 days from now. She finally looked up, her expression already defensive before I'd even questioned the decision. I know it's short notice, but Vanessa just found out about the cancellation, and this place is normally booked months in advance. It's a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity, Vincent. I need this. The way she said need carried weight, like this wasn't about wanting a vacation but about some essential requirement for her survival. I'd heard variations of this theme increasingly over the past 6 months. Things she needed, things she deserved, things that would make her feel fulfilled. The implication was always the same. Our marriage wasn't providing whatever she was searching for. What about your work? I asked, keeping my tone neutral. Did you clear this with your team? Stephanie worked as a corporate event planner for a marketing firm, and I knew they had several major clients with upcoming launches. She waved her hand dismissively, still scrolling through her phone. I have vacation days saved up, and honestly, they can survive without me for 10 days. Derek can handle the Morrison account presentation, and the rest is just routine coordination that anyone can do. Derek. She'd been mentioning him more frequently lately, her colleague who'd just been promoted to senior director, who drove a Tesla, who closed deals at exclusive restaurants I'd never heard of. The comparisons had started subtly months ago but had become increasingly pointed. Derek understands the importance of presentation. Derek just bought a townhouse in that new development downtown. Derek's taking his girlfriend to Napa for their anniversary. Not just dinner, an entire week exploring wineries. The subtext was always clear. Derek was succeeding in ways I apparently wasn't. And what about us? I asked. We haven't discussed this at all. We had plans this weekend, your sister's birthday dinner, remember? Her jaw tightened and I recognized the look. I was being unreasonable, selfish, not supporting her personal growth. Vincent, this is exactly what I'm talking about. Everything is always about obligations and schedules and what we're supposed to do. When is it about what I need? When do I get to prioritize myself? I studied her face, really looked at her for the first time in what felt like weeks. When had this distance grown between us? When had I become the obstacle to her happiness rather than her partner? I'm not saying you can't go, I said carefully. I'm just surprised you made this decision without talking to me first. 10 days is a significant amount of time, and the way you're framing it makes it sound like you're not just going on a trip, you're escaping from something. Her eyes flashed, defensive walls going up instantly. Maybe I am escaping. Did you ever think of that? This marriage has become suffocating, Vincent. You're content with your routine, work, home, occasional dinner out, repeat. But I'm not. I need space to breathe, to think, to figure out what I actually want from my life. The word, suffocating, hit harder than I expected. I'd been working 60-hour weeks for the past year, taking on additional projects to build our savings, planning for the future I thought we both wanted. Apparently, somewhere along the way, my dedication had transformed into oppression in her mind. So this retreat is about figuring out what you want, I said slowly. And where does that leave us? Am I supposed to just wait here while you decide if our marriage is worth continuing? She had the decency to look uncomfortable for a moment, but then her chin lifted in that stubborn way that meant she'd already justified everything to herself. I'm not saying that. Don't be dramatic. I just need time to reconnect with myself, away from all the pressure and expectations. Is that really so unreasonable? The thing was, on the surface, it wasn't unreasonable. People needed breaks, time to recharge, space to think. But the way she was doing it, the lack of communication, the timing, the framing of our marriage as something she needed to escape, all of it felt wrong. I recognized this pattern from friends who'd gone through similar situations. This wasn't about self-discovery. This was about control, about testing boundaries, about seeing how much she could push before I pushed back. Fine, I said, turning back to my computer. Go on your retreat. Do your soul searching. I hope you find whatever you're looking for. I could feel her standing there, waiting for more, waiting for me to argue, to beg her not to go, to prove through my desperation that I valued her. When I simply resumed typing, focusing on the code I'd been reviewing, I heard her sharp intake of breath. That's it? That's all you have to say? I glanced back at her, keeping my expression neutral. What do you want me to say, Stephanie? You've clearly already decided. You're going regardless of my opinion. So yes, that's it. Have a good trip. She stood there for another moment, and I could practically see her recalibrating. This wasn't the response she'd expected. She wanted resistance so she could paint me as controlling, or she wanted pleading so she could feel powerful. My calm acceptance threw off whatever script she'd prepared. Fine, she said, her tone now edged with something that might have been disappointment or might have been irritation. I'll start packing. We're leaving early Wednesday, probably around 6. She left my office, and I heard her climb the stairs to our bedroom, her footsteps heavier than necessary. I sat staring at my computer screen, the lines of code blurring as my mind processed what had just happened. This wasn't about a wellness retreat. This was about something bigger, something that had been building beneath the surface of our marriage while I'd been too focused on work and plans for the future to notice. The rest of Monday evening was tense. Stephanie spent hours on video calls with Vanessa and the other women from her college group, and I could hear the excitement in her voice from downstairs, laughter, animated discussions about spa treatments and meditation sessions, and finally getting away from everything. At one point, I heard her say, "He's being completely unsupportive as usual. Can you believe he actually made me feel guilty about going?" I considered confronting her about the misrepresentation but decided against it. Let her paint whatever narrative she needed. I was beginning to see things with uncomfortable clarity. Tuesday morning, I woke up to find her side of the bed already empty. She'd been up since dawn, according to the timestamp on the text she'd sent, getting Mani/Petty with V before the trip. Left coffee for you. The coffee maker was indeed on, but it felt less like a thoughtful gesture and more like an afterthought, evidence she could point to later as proof she'd been considerate. I spent Tuesday morning working from home, but my focus kept drifting to the sounds of Stephanie moving around upstairs. The guest bedroom had become her staging area, and every few minutes I'd hear the rolling of her designer luggage, the expensive set she'd insisted on buying last year because presentation matters even in travel, across the hardwood floor. Around noon, I went upstairs to grab something from our bedroom and found her surrounded by clothing options spread across the bed, each outfit carefully coordinated. She was on another video call, her laptop propped on the dresser showing Vanessa's face. The blue athleisure set or the cream one? Stephanie held up two nearly identical expensive workout outfits. Definitely the cream, Vanessa said through the screen. You look amazing in neutrals. Plus, it photographs better for the Instagram content we're planning. Instagram content. Of course. This personal growth retreat would be extensively documented for social media consumption, carefully curated photos designed to showcase a life of wellness and freedom. I wondered how many of those photos would be captioned with vague references to finding myself, or prioritizing self-care, or other phrases that sounded profound but meant nothing. Vincent. Stephanie's sharp voice cut through my thoughts. Can you grab my phone charger? I think I left it in your office. Not our office, or the office, your office. Like every space in the home we'd bought together had been subdivided into territories. I retrieved the charger without comment and handed it to her. She took it without thanks, already back to her video call. He's hovering, she said to Vanessa, loud enough for me to hear. Classic codependent behavior. I left the room, feeling something cold settle in my chest. Codependent. For wanting to exist in my own home while she packed for a trip I'd had no say in. For being present while she prepared to abandon our life for 10 days without genuine discussion or consideration. That evening, while Stephanie was in the shower, I did something I'd never done in our 4 years together. Something that went against every principle I'd believed about trust and privacy in marriage. I opened her laptop, still logged into her email account on the kitchen counter where she'd left it after another video call with her friends. I told myself I was just checking to see if there was something I'd missed, some context that would explain this sudden need for escape. What I found was so much worse than I'd imagined. The first email thread I found was dated 3 months back, long before this sudden retreat opportunity had materialized. Subject line: Mountain Escape Planning Girls Trip 2024. I scrolled through dozens of messages between Stephanie, Vanessa, and 3 other women from their college sorority, detailing every aspect of this trip that was supposedly booked on short notice due to a last-minute cancellation. They'd been coordinating schedules, researching wellness retreats, comparing pricing packages, and discussing the best dates since January. The retreat had been fully booked and paid for since February, with Stephanie putting down a $1,200 deposit I'd never seen on any of our credit card statements. I opened our shared cloud storage, something we'd set up years ago for household documents and photos, and found a folder titled Personal Finance 2024 that I'd never noticed before. Inside were scanned copies of statements for a checking account I didn't recognize, opened at a bank across town in her name only. Regular deposits of $300 to $500 appeared monthly, dating back almost 2 years. I did the math quickly. She'd accumulated nearly $18,000 in an account she'd hidden from me while I'd been depositing my entire paycheck into our joint account and covering most of our shared expenses. But the financial deception wasn't even the worst part. Buried in her personal email folder was a thread with a name that made my stomach drop: Connor Hayes. I remembered Connor vaguely from the one time I'd met him at Stephanie's college reunion 3 years ago, her ex-boyfriend from sophomore year, the guy she'd described as ancient history, nothing to worry about. The email chain between them started 6 months ago with a casual, "Hey stranger, heard you moved back to Denver," message from him. Her response had been enthusiastic, warm, nostalgic. They'd met for coffee twice, according to the messages. Then lunch. Then drinks after work while I'd been pulling late nights on a major system migration project. The most recent exchange was from last Thursday, 5 days ago. Connor had written, "Can't believe you'll actually be at Serenity Ridge the same week I'm doing the executive retreat there. What are the odds? Maybe the universe is telling us something." Stephanie's response made my hands shake slightly as I read it. "I know, right? It's like fate. V thinks I'm crazy, but I can't stop thinking about what you said at Marcello's, about how different my life might have been if I'd made different choices back then. 10 days away from everything might give me the clarity I need. See you Wednesday." I sat there staring at the screen, hearing the shower still running upstairs, and felt something fundamental shift inside me. This wasn't about personal growth or needing space to breathe. This was a planned rendezvous, carefully orchestrated and deliberately hidden, with me cast as the obstacle to be temporarily removed from the equation. I took screenshots of everything: the planning emails, the secret bank account statements, the entire conversation thread with Connor. I created a new folder in my own cloud storage, carefully documenting dates, amounts, and the most incriminating messages. My software architect brain kicked into analytical mode, organizing evidence the way I debug a complex system failure. I heard the water shut off upstairs and quickly closed the laptop, positioning it exactly as she'd left it. When Stephanie emerged 20 minutes later in her silk pajamas, hair wrapped in a towel, she found me sitting on the couch with my own laptop, apparently absorbed in work. "You're still up?" she asked, sounding almost disappointed that I wasn't already in bed, out of her way. "Big deployment scheduled for Thursday," I said, which was true. Wanted to review the checklist one more time. She nodded absently, already focused on her phone again, probably texting Connor or the girls about final trip details. "I'm exhausted. Going to bed early since we're leaving at dawn." She paused at the bottom of the stairs, And for a moment something flickered across her face. Guilt, maybe, or second thoughts. Vincent, I know this seems sudden, but I really do think this time apart will be good for us. Help us appreciate what we have. The words might have sounded caring if I hadn't just read her emails planning what amounted to an emotional affair trial run. I'm sure you'll gain a lot of clarity, I said neutrally. That's what these retreats are for, right? Figuring out what you really want. After she went upstairs, I made a call I never thought I'd make. My college roommate Tyler had gone to law school and now practiced family law in Boulder, about 30 miles away. We'd stayed close over the years, having dinner every few months, and I trusted him completely. He answered on the third ring, sounding concerned when he saw the time. Vincent? Everything okay? I need legal advice, I said quietly. About my marriage. There was a pause, then his tone shifted to professional alertness. Tell me what's going on. I spent the next 40 minutes laying out everything. The sudden retreat announcement, what I discovered on her laptop, the secret bank account, the correspondence with her ex. Tyler listened without interrupting, and I could hear him taking notes. When I finished, he was quiet for a moment before speaking. First question, do you want to save this marriage? I'd been asking myself the same thing since reading those emails. The answer surprised me with its clarity. No, I said. Not like this. Not with someone who plans elaborate deceptions and calls our marriage suffocating while secretly rekindling things with an ex. I deserve better than being someone's backup plan. Good, Tyler said bluntly. Because from what you're describing, you're being systematically devalued and potentially set up for a grass is greener exit where she keeps you on the hook financially while exploring other options. We need to protect you. He walked me through the basics. Colorado was a no-fault divorce state, but documentation of financial infidelity and emotional affairs could impact settlements. The condo being solely in my name was significant since I'd purchased it 2 years before we married and she'd never been added to the deed due to her credit issues at the time. Her secret account proved she was capable of hiding assets, which a court wouldn't look favorably upon. Here's what you do, Tyler said. Wednesday morning, she leaves. You document everything in the house. Photos, videos, detailed inventory of your personal property versus shared property. You gather all financial records. And you get ahead of this before she controls the narrative. You think she's planning to leave, I said. It wasn't a question. I think she's testing the waters to see if something better is out there, and she expects you to wait around while she decides. Don't give her that power. If she wants space, give her enough space to realize what she's losing permanently. Wednesday morning arrived gray and cold, appropriate weather for what felt like an ending. I woke to the sound of Stephanie's alarm at 5:30, watched her move around the bedroom in the dim light, checking her appearance in the mirror multiple times. She dressed carefully, expensive athleisure that looked effortlessly stylish, minimal makeup that took 40 minutes to achieve, hair in the kind of casually perfect style that required significant effort. You're awake, she said, noticing me watching her. Didn't mean to disturb you. It's fine. Big day for you. She sat on the edge of the bed, and for a moment I saw a flash of the woman I'd married, uncertain, vulnerable, human. Vincent, I know I've been difficult lately. I know I haven't been fair to you. Maybe this time apart will help me remember why we work. If I hadn't read her emails, hadn't seen the secret account, hadn't known about Connor waiting at the same retreat, I might have believed her. Instead, I just nodded. Maybe it will give us both clarity. She leaned down and kissed me, quick and perfunctory, already mentally at the retreat. I'll text you when we get there. Love you. Drive safe, I said, not returning the sentiment. She didn't seem to notice. I listened to her roll her designer luggage down the stairs, heard the front door open and close, the sound of a large vehicle starting outside, the luxury SUV rental she'd arranged, another expense I'd known nothing about. I got up and went to the window, watching her load her bags with Vanessa's help, both women laughing about something as they climbed into the vehicle. They pulled away at 6:15, and I stood there watching until the taillights disappeared around the corner. Then I picked up my phone and called Tyler. She's gone, I said. Good, he replied. Now let's get to work. Tyler arrived at my condo by 8:30 with his paralegal, A sharp-eyed woman named Rachel who carried a professional camera and a laptop loaded with asset documentation software. I'd made coffee, the one domestic task I could manage while my mind ran through everything I needed to accomplish. First things first, Tyler said, settling at my kitchen table and opening his briefcase. We need to understand your complete financial picture and your legal position. Walk me through everything: assets, debts, income, property ownership. I pulled up the spreadsheet I'd created at 4 a.m. when sleep became impossible, laying out our financial reality with the precision my job demanded. The condo was worth approximately $385,000 with $190,000 remaining on the mortgage, titled solely in my name because Stephanie's credit score had been 580 when I purchased it 3 years ago. I'd been making every mortgage payment from my account, which averaged $2,100 monthly including taxes and insurance. My salary as a senior software architect was $127,000 annually, while Stephanie's event planning position paid $52,000. Our joint checking account, which I'd been treating as our primary household account, showed I'd deposited my entire paycheck every month while she'd been contributing sporadically, sometimes $1,000, sometimes nothing for months at a time. And you discovered she has a separate account with approximately $18,000, Tyler noted, typing details into his laptop. That's going to be important. It demonstrates financial planning and intentional asset concealment during the marriage. Rachel was already moving through the condo with her camera, photographing every room from multiple angles, documenting the current state of our shared space. Tyler had explained this was crucial, establishing baseline conditions before any property disputes could arise. I watched her work, this stranger cataloging the life Stephanie and I had built, and felt oddly detached from it all. What about shared debts? Tyler asked. I pulled up our credit card statements. We had 2 cards in both our names with a combined balance of $8,400, mostly from her spending on clothes, restaurants, and what she'd labeled as professional development, expenses that seemed to be networking lunches and wardrobe investments. My personal credit card, which I'd kept separate, had a $2,200 balance from the system certification courses I'd taken last year. Utilities, insurance, subscriptions? Tyler continued methodically. I'd spent the previous night compiling this exact information. Electric and gas were in my name, auto-paying from my personal account. Internet and cable were bundled under my name, $140 monthly. Car insurance covered both vehicles, her leased BMW 330i at $485 monthly and my paid-off Honda Accord at $95 monthly, all paid from the joint account which, again, was primarily funded by me. Then there were the subscriptions Stephanie considered essential, premium streaming services across 4 platforms, her ClassPass membership for boutique fitness studios, meditation app subscriptions, luxury beauty boxes, wine club deliveries. I'd been paying for all of it, roughly $380 monthly, without questioning whether she could contribute. Here's your strategic position, Tyler said after reviewing everything. The condo is separate property acquired before marriage. Colorado law means she might have a claim on appreciation during the marriage and any mortgage payments made with marital funds, but given your income disparity and her hidden assets, that claim weakens significantly. Her secret account proves she was financially capable of contributing but chose not to. He looked up from his laptop, his expression serious. Vincent, I need you to understand something. What you're describing isn't just a troubled marriage. It's financial exploitation with a side of emotional betrayal. She's been treating you like a resource while planning exit strategies. We need to protect you aggressively. What do I do? I asked. We separate your finances immediately and completely. You open new accounts at a different bank, redirect your paycheck, and remove her access to your money. You document everything in this condo that belongs solely to you: electronics, furniture you owned before marriage, gifts from your family, professional equipment. Then you remove those items and store them securely. You want me to move out? The thought hadn't occurred to me. This was my home, my investment, my space. No, Tyler said. I want you to remove your vulnerable personal property so it can't be held hostage or damaged during what's coming. You maintain residence here because it's your property, but you protect what matters. Think of it as strategic asset protection. Rachel finished photographing and joined us at the table. The condo is well maintained, clearly lived in by both parties, but I noticed something interesting. Almost all the personal touches, photos, decorative items, the artwork, seem to be hers. Your presence is minimal except in the office and the garage. She was right. Stephanie had gradually transformed our shared space into her aesthetic vision, and I'd let it happen because I'd been focused on work, on building our future, on being the stable foundation she claimed to need. My belongings, my personality, had been systematically edited out of our home until I was practically invisible in my own space. Here's what happens next, Tyler said, pulling out a legal pad. Today, you go to a different bank, I recommend First Mountain Credit Union, and open new checking and savings accounts. You contact your HR department and redirect your direct deposit to the new account effective immediately. You go to the joint account bank and remove yourself as an account holder, or if that's not possible, withdraw 50% of the current balance and transfer it to your new account. I checked our joint balance on my phone. We had $4,200 currently, which meant I'd take $2,100. It felt strange, calculating the division of money I'd primarily earned and deposited. Next, Tyler continued, you contact every utility company, insurance provider, and subscription service. For anything in your name only, you maintain the account but change payment methods to your new account. For joint accounts, you remove yourself where possible or notify them of the separation. She needs to understand that her lifestyle costs money she'll now be responsible for paying. The car insurance is the big one, I noted. Her BMW lease payment and insurance together are over $600 monthly. Perfect, Tyler said with a grim smile. Nothing teaches financial reality faster than suddenly being responsible for luxury vehicle expenses. She's been living a lifestyle subsidized by you while hiding money and planning rendezvous with her ex time for her to experience the actual cost of her choices. Rachel pulled out a checklist she'd apparently prepared. You'll also need to secure your personal documents, passport, birth certificate, social security card, tax returns. Change passwords on all your personal accounts, emails, banking apps, everything. Enable two-factor authentication. You'd be surprised how often vindictive spouses try to access accounts during separation. The clinical, methodical approach to dismantling my marriage should have felt cold, but instead it felt necessary. I'd spent months trying to understand why Stephanie seemed increasingly unhappy, wondering what I could do differently, how I could be better. Now I understood that nothing I did would have been enough because the problem wasn't me, it was that she'd been actively planning to explore other options while keeping me as a financial safety net. I need you to think carefully about personal property, Tyler said. What items in this condo are irreplaceable or have significant monetary or sentimental value? Family heirlooms, expensive electronics, collectibles, anything you can't afford to lose or replace. I mentally inventoried the condo. My grandmother's antique desk in the office, worth at least $3,000 and priceless to me personally. My gaming computer and server setup for side projects, probably $4,500 in hardware. The mountain bike I'd saved for months to buy, $2,800. My father's vintage record collection, irreplaceable. Photography equipment from my brief stint as a hobby photographer, around $3,200 in cameras and lenses. I can get my brother to help, I said. He has a truck, and I know a climate-controlled storage facility near his place. Perfect, Tyler approved. Do it today while she's gone. Get everything valuable out. Then, before you leave for the last time today, you place a letter, I'll help you draft it, explaining what you discovered and what's happening. Facts only, no emotion, completely clear about the separation of finances and your intention to file for divorce. Divorce. The word hung in the air, making everything suddenly real. I was about to blow up my marriage, my life as I knew it, based on email evidence and a gut feeling that Stephanie was past the point of choosing me. But then I thought about her calling our marriage suffocating, about Connor waiting at the same retreat, about $18,000 hidden while I struggled to cover our expenses. Let's do it, I said. By noon, I'd opened new accounts at First Mountain Credit Union, contacted my HR department to redirect my Friday paycheck, and visited our joint account bank to withdraw my half of the balance. The teller processed the transaction without comment, probably seeing this exact scenario play out regularly. I transferred $2,100 to my new account and watched the joint balance drop to $2,100, knowing Stephanie would see this when she checked and realize something had changed. Tyler and I drafted the letter together, keeping it factual and unemotional. It listed what I'd discovered: the planned retreat, the secret account, the correspondence with Connor. It explained my decision to separate our finances and my intention to file for divorce. It included a breakdown of bills she'd now be responsible for if she chose to stay in the condo, though I noted that as the property owner, I reserved the right to determine residency. We attached copies of the most incriminating emails and bank statements, evidence she couldn't deny or explain away. My brother Marcus arrived at 3 with his truck and 2 of his friends from the construction company where he worked. I'd called him that morning and he'd asked only one question: "You sure about this?" When I'd explained what I'd found, his response was immediate: "I'll be there with help." We spent the next 4 hours systematically removing everything that mattered to me. Grandmother's desk required careful maneuvering down the stairs, but Marcus's crew handled it professionally. My electronics, photography equipment, bike, records, clothes, personal books, family photos, all of it loaded into the truck in Marcus's friend's van. Rachel had provided labels, and I marked each box with detailed contents and my initials, creating a paper trail of my separate property. By 7:30, the condo looked strangely empty. All the furniture remained. We'd bought most of it together, or Stephanie had chosen it, but my personality had been extracted from the space. My office was bare except for the desk and chair she'd picked out. The garage held only her BMW, my designated parking spot now vacant. The bedroom closet showed a gaping absence where my clothes had hung. I walked through one final time with my phone, recording video of each room, narrating what had been removed and what remained. Then I placed the letter on the kitchen counter, held down by her favorite coffee mug, where she couldn't possibly miss it. I locked the door behind me and headed to Marcus's place, where he'd cleared his guest room for me to stay as long as needed. As I drove through the familiar streets, leaving my condo and my marriage behind, I felt something unexpected, not grief or anger, but relief. The exhausting performance of being enough for someone who'd already decided I wasn't, that was finally over. Marcus lived in a renovated warehouse loft in the Arts District, a space he'd bought and gutted himself using his construction expertise. The guest suite was actually nicer than it sounded, a private room with its own bathroom, separated from the main living area by exposed brick and industrial shelving. He'd clearly prepared for my arrival, fresh sheets on the bed and towels stacked neatly on the dresser. "Beer?" he offered as I dropped my first load of boxes. "God, yes." We sat on his balcony overlooking the city, the lights spreading out below us like scattered stars. Marcus didn't push for details, just waited while I drank half the beer in silence. Finally, I told him everything: the retreat announcement, the emails with Connor, the secret account, the systematic financial exploitation I'd been too blind to see. "She really had you convinced you were the problem," Marcus said when I finished. "Made you think that working hard and being reliable made you boring, that planning for your future together made you controlling. Classic manipulation." I kept thinking if I just gave her what she needed, if I was patient enough, supportive enough, she'd eventually appreciate it, I admitted. Instead, every sacrifice I made just lowered her respect for me. Marcus crushed his empty beer can with one hand. "You know what Dad used to say? Never let someone convince you that being good to them is a character flaw. She turned your strengths into weaknesses in your own mind. That's abuse, Vincent. Financial and emotional abuse." I'd never thought of it that way, but he was right. I'd been systematically devalued while funding someone else's lifestyle and ego, convinced that my discomfort was just me being inadequate. "What's the plan for tomorrow?" Marcus asked. "I need to handle the utilities and subscriptions," I said, pulling up the list Rachel had given me. "Cancel what I can, transfer what I can't, make sure she understands that her lifestyle has a price tag she'll now be paying." Thursday morning, I woke up to my alarm and immediately checked my phone, a habit from years of being on call for system emergencies. 3 texts from Stephanie, all sent the previous evening. The first was a photo of mountain views with the caption, "Already feeling so much lighter. You should see this place." The second, 2 hours later, ran into some old friends at the welcome dinner. Small world. Old friends. She meant Connor, obviously, but couldn't say his name because that would reveal the lie. The third, sent at midnight, "Miss you. Hope work isn't too stressful. Talk tomorrow?" I didn't respond. Instead, I started making calls. First was the electric company. "I need to transfer the account at 2847 Riverside Drive to Stephanie Brennan," I told the customer service representative. "I'm moving out and will no longer be responsible for the property." The rep required some verification, but within 10 minutes, the account was in Stephanie's name with a notification email sent to her address. I did the same with the gas company, then the water and sewer department. Each transfer generated an automated email to her, a digital paper trail of our separation happening in real time while she was hundreds of miles away. The internet and cable bundle was easier. I simply called and scheduled a disconnection for Friday afternoon. "Just to confirm," the representative said, "service will terminate at 5 p.m. tomorrow, and your final bill will be prorated to that date." Perfect. Stephanie would return to a condo with no internet, no streaming capability, no way to maintain her social media presence without using her phone's data plan. A small inconvenience, but symbolic. Car insurance was the significant one. I called our provider and explained I was separating from my spouse and needed to split the policy. The agent walked me through the process. Stephanie would need her own policy for the BMW, while my Honda would remain on an individual plan at a dramatically reduced rate. Her new premium will be approximately $245 monthly for the coverage level she currently has, the agent informed me. And that's assuming she maintains good credit. If there are any changes to her credit score, the rate could increase. I authorized the split effective immediately, which would generate yet another email notification to her. Then I tackled the subscriptions, the little luxuries that had accumulated over our years together like barnacles on a ship. Netflix, Hulu, HBO Max, Disney+. All canceled, confirmation emails sent. Her ClassPass membership, which she'd insisted was essential for her mental health but cost $179 monthly, canceled. The meditation app subscriptions, the luxury beauty boxes, the wine club deliveries, all of it, gone. Each cancellation felt like removing weight from my shoulders, obligations I'd been carrying without questioning whether they were mine to bear. By noon, I'd systematically dismantled the financial infrastructure of Stephanie's lifestyle. My phone showed a dozen confirmation emails, each one representing money I'd no longer be spending on someone who'd called our marriage suffocating while secretly planning to explore options with her ex-boyfriend. Tyler called while I was finishing lunch. "How's it going?" "Everything's done," I reported. Utilities transferred to her name, subscriptions canceled, insurance split. She's going to have a very educational next billing cycle. Good. I've started drafting the divorce petition. We'll file next week, which gives her time to come back and discover the new reality. The shock value is important. We want her to understand immediately that this isn't a negotiation. "She'll try to fight it," I said. "She'll claim I'm being vindictive, that I'm punishing her for wanting personal growth. Let her claim whatever she wants. We have documentation of her deception, her hidden assets, and her emotional affair. Any judge will see through the victim narrative pretty quickly." That afternoon, I returned to the condo one final time. I needed to collect a few items I'd forgotten: my passport from the safe, some work documents from the file cabinet, my spare car key. The place felt like a museum of my former life, familiar but no longer mine. I walked through the rooms I'd thought of as home, and realized Stephanie was right about one thing. This space had been suffocating, but not for the reasons she claimed. It had been suffocating because I'd been trying to build a life with someone who saw me as a means to an end rather than a partner. Before leaving, I checked the mail. Among the usual junk was an envelope from Serenity Ridge Wellness Retreat, the final billing statement for Stephanie's trip. I opened it, curious about the actual cost. $3,800 for 10 days, all-inclusive luxury accommodations. She'd paid the deposit from her secret account, with the balance due upon arrival. I took a photo of the statement and added it to my evidence folder. Then I left my key on the kitchen counter next to the letter I'd written, locked the door using the exterior keypad, and changed the entry code to something she wouldn't guess. She still had her key, but the added security felt symbolically important. My phone buzzed as I walked to my car. A text from Stephanie. "Everything okay? You've been quiet." I considered not responding, but Tyler had advised me to remain cordial but distant during this phase. "Everything's fine. Busy with work. Enjoy your retreat." 3 dots appeared immediately, lingered, then disappeared. She was sensing something off but couldn't identify what. The cognitive dissonance of expecting me to wait patiently while she was probably sitting next to Connor at some group meditation session was almost amusing. That evening, Marcus and I assembled furniture in the guest room, a proper desk for my work setup, better lighting, shelving for my books. His girlfriend Emma joined us for dinner, and neither of them pressed me for details beyond asking if I was okay. "You seem different," Emma observed over the Thai food we'd ordered. "More present maybe?" She was right. For the first time in months, I wasn't carrying the constant anxiety of wondering why I wasn't enough, why my best efforts fell short, why someone who claimed to love me treated me like an inconvenience. "I feel like I've been holding my breath for a year," I admitted, and I finally remembered how to exhale. Friday morning brought a cascade of responses from Stephanie. The utility companies and insurance provider had all sent her notification emails overnight, and she was starting to piece together what was happening. "Vincent, I'm getting weird emails about the electric bill being transferred to my name. What's going on?" An hour later, "The cable company says our service is being disconnected today. Is this a mistake?" Then, "Why am I getting a notice about car insurance changes? I don't understand what's happening." I waited until my lunch break to respond with a single message. "Check the kitchen counter when you get home. There's a letter explaining everything." Her response was immediate. "What letter?" "Vincent, you're scaring me. What's going on? You said you needed space to figure out what you wanted. I'm giving you that space. We'll talk when you get back." My phone rang within seconds, her calling, the first time she'd actually tried to speak to me since leaving. I declined the call. She tried 3 more times over the next hour, each one going to voicemail. Finally, a text. "Please pick up. I need to talk to you right now." But I was done being available at her convenience, dropping everything to manage her emotions while she explored whether Connor might be a better option. She could wait, could experience the anxiety of not knowing, could sit with the uncertainty she'd been so willing to inflict on me. The cable disconnected at 5 p.m. as scheduled. By 5:30, Stephanie was in full panic mode. Her texts came in rapid succession, the carefully curated retreat experience apparently abandoned as she tried to understand why her comfortable life was disintegrating. "Vanessa says I should just come home early, but I don't want to overreact." "Vincent, please. Whatever's wrong, we can talk about it. I'm getting notifications about canceled subscriptions. Did someone hack our accounts?" "Vincent, answer me." I silenced my phone and went to dinner with Marcus and some of his friends from the construction crew, people who'd worked hard for everything they had and didn't have patience for the kind of entitled manipulation Stephanie had perfected. One of them, a woman named Kat who managed logistics for Marcus's company, listened to the abbreviated version of my story and summed it up perfectly. She wanted you to be her emotional and financial support system while she test drove other options. Now she's learning that support systems can be withdrawn. Good for you. That night, lying in the guest room at Marcus's place, I felt something close to peace. Stephanie was somewhere in the mountains, probably explaining to Connor and Vanessa and whoever else would listen that her husband was having some kind of breakdown, that she'd been right about him being controlling, that this proved she needed to leave. Let her spin whatever narrative she needed. The evidence told the truth, and in a few days, she'd be home to face it directly. Sunday morning, 3 days before her planned return date, my phone exploded with calls and texts. Stephanie was coming home early. She'd convinced Vanessa to drive her back, claiming a family emergency, though we both knew the real emergency was her lifestyle crumbling and her inability to control the situation from a distance. I'm coming home today, her text read. We need to talk about this face to face. Whatever's going on, we can fix it. I showed Tyler the message. His response was immediate. Perfect. Let her walk into the reality she created. Don't meet her there. Don't engage until she's had time to read the letter and understand the evidence. Let the truth do the work. So I spent that Sunday at Marcus's place, working on a side project, refusing to check my phone compulsively, trusting that Stephanie was about to have the most educational afternoon of her life. Around 4 p.m., Marcus looked up from his tablet and said quietly, "I think she's home." He was right. My phone lit up with her call, and when I didn't answer, the voicemails started. I listened to them later that night, heard her voice progress from confused to angry to desperate, a complete emotional journey captured in 7 messages that told me everything I needed to know about who she really was beneath the carefully constructed exterior. The first voicemail came at 4:17 p.m. Stephanie's voice was controlled, almost artificially calm, the tone she used when trying to convince herself she had everything under control. "Vincent, I'm home. I see you've moved some things. I found your letter. This is insane. You went through my private emails? That's a violation of trust, and honestly, I think you're overreacting to what was just casual correspondence with an old friend. Call me back so we can discuss this like adults." I deleted it without finishing. The fact that she led with accusing me of violating her trust, rather than acknowledging her own deception, told me everything about her mindset. She was already constructing a narrative where I was the villain. The second voicemail, 20 minutes later, had a different energy. The calm facade was cracking. "Okay, I've read the whole letter now. Yes, I should have told you about the savings account, but I was planning to surprise you with it for our anniversary. And the Connor thing, you're completely misunderstanding those emails. We're friends, Vincent. Friends communicate. The fact that you immediately jumped to assuming the worst says more about your insecurity than my behavior. But fine, you want to have a dramatic conversation about trust? Let's have it. Call me." The gaslighting was impressive. My insecurity. My overreaction. My trust violation. Everything repositioned to make her the wronged party. The third message came an hour later, as she'd apparently had time to discover the full extent of the changes. Her voice was tighter now, anger breaking through. "You canceled the internet? The subscriptions? You changed the utility accounts without even discussing it with me? This is financial abuse, Vincent. Do you understand that? You can't just cut someone off from basic services because you're having a tantrum about emails. This is controlling behavior, and honestly, it's proving exactly why I needed space in the first place. You're suffocating me even when you're not here." I almost laughed at that one. Financial abuse, from the woman who'd been living off my income while hiding $18,000 and planning secret meetings with her ex. The projection was textbook. Message 4, 2 hours after she'd arrived home, showed the first signs of genuine panic. "Vincent, please. I know you're angry and maybe I should have been more transparent about some things, but this, leaving me with all these bills, taking all your stuff without warning, this isn't you. This isn't how we solve problems. I'm sorry, okay? I'm sorry I didn't tell you about the account. I'm sorry if the Connor emails seemed inappropriate. But we can work through this. We're married. You don't just give up on a marriage because of a misunderstanding." A misunderstanding. That's what she was calling months of deception, financial concealment, and emotional infidelity. A misunderstanding. I texted her once that evening, a simple message: "I'll be in touch through my attorney. We have nothing to discuss directly." Her response was immediate, a wall of text that my phone truncated into multiple bubbles. "Attorney? Vincent, you're not serious. You can't just decide to divorce me because you read some emails out of context. I haven't done anything wrong. I went on a wellness retreat with friends. That's literally it. Yes, Connor was there, but we barely spoke. You're creating drama where none exists, and honestly, this reaction is exactly why I've been feeling trapped. You're being irrational and vindictive, and I don't even recognize you right now. If you're going to throw away our marriage over your paranoid fantasies, then maybe you're right. Maybe we do need space. But don't pretend this is about me. This is about your inability to trust, your need to control everything, your refusal to let me have any independence. I've been trying so hard to make this work, but you keep proving that you see me as property instead of a partner. I read it twice, struck by how completely she'd inverted reality. In her version, I was the controlling one, the untrusting one, the one destroying our marriage. The fact that she'd systematically concealed money, planned a rendezvous with her ex, and called our marriage suffocating, all of that was just me being paranoid. Tyler had warned me about this. Narcissists can't accept responsibility, he'd said. They'll twist every situation until they're the victim. Don't engage with the false narrative. Stick to facts and let her exhaust herself against them. Monday morning brought a shift in strategy. Stephanie had apparently spent Sunday night formulating a new approach, because her messages became conciliatory, almost sweet. Good morning. I know you probably don't want to hear from me, but I've been up all night thinking about us. I was wrong not to tell you about the account. I was wrong to be so dismissive of your feelings. Can we please just talk? I miss you. I miss us. An hour later, I talked to my sister. She thinks I should give you space like you wanted, but I can't just sit here wondering if our marriage is over. You're my husband. Don't I deserve at least a conversation? Then, around noon, the electric bill came. It's $230. I didn't realize how much you were covering. I'm not trying to make this about money, but I need to understand what you expect from me financially. Can you at least respond about that? There was the reality of actual expenses hitting her account, probably for the first time in our marriage. The abstract concept of bills becoming concrete numbers she was responsible for paying. I didn't respond. Tuesday, her messages became more desperate. Vincent, it's been almost a week since you left. People are starting to ask questions. What am I supposed to tell them? That my husband abandoned me because he's having some kind of crisis? I need you to communicate with me. This silent treatment is cruel. Silent treatment. As if my refusal to engage with her manipulation was somehow abusive. As if I owed her immediate accessibility after discovering months of betrayal. That afternoon, I went by your office today. Your assistant said you're working remotely this week. Are you avoiding me? Are you staying somewhere in the city? Vincent, please. I'm losing my mind here. Just tell me what you want me to do. What I wanted her to do was experience the natural consequences of her choices, but I didn't say that. Instead, I maintained the silence Tyler had recommended, letting her sit with the uncertainty she'd been so willing to inflict on me. Wednesday brought the insurance bill, her separate policy for the BMW. I knew because she texted me a photo of it. $245 a month? This has to be wrong. Our insurance was never this high. Did you tell them to charge me more? This is insane. I can't afford this on top of everything else. The financial reality was setting in, and she didn't like it. Her lifestyle, the leased luxury car, the designer clothes, the boutique fitness classes, the constant dining out, all of it had been subsidized by me. Now, faced with actual costs, she was discovering that her $52,000 salary didn't stretch as far as she'd imagined. Thursday morning, exactly 1 week after she'd left for the retreat, Stephanie tried a different approach. She called from a number I didn't recognize, probably borrowed someone's phone, and I answered without thinking. Don't hang up, she said immediately, her voice strained. Please just listen. I didn't hang up, but I didn't speak either. I talked to Connor, she continued, words tumbling out quickly like she was afraid I'd disconnect. I told him we can't be in contact anymore. I know how it looked, but nothing happened at the retreat. We had coffee once, that's it. I was confused about what I wanted, but I'm not confused anymore. I want us. I want our marriage. I know I messed up by not being honest about the account and the emails, but doesn't our history count for something? For years, Vincent. We've built a life together. You can't just throw that away. I let the silence stretch, thinking about what she'd just said. She'd talked to Connor. Told him they couldn't be in contact. Nothing was ever going to happen, but I'm ending this now because I got caught. The distinction mattered. I've already talked to an attorney, I finally said. You'll be served with divorce papers within the next few days. Everything I need to say is in that letter I left. This conversation is over. Vincent, no. I hung up and immediately blocked the number. She tried calling from 2 more numbers that afternoon, both of which I blocked without answering. Her text messages continued, increasingly frantic. You're really going to divorce me? Over this? I made mistakes, but so have you. You ignored me for months while focusing on work. You made me feel invisible. Don't I get any understanding for feeling lonely and confused? There it was again. Everything was somehow my fault. I'd driven her to hide money, to reconnect with her ex, to plan secret meetups by being too focused on building our financial future. The mental gymnastics required to make that logical were impressive. Friday afternoon, Tyler called. Papers are ready. Process server will deliver them tomorrow morning at the condo. Are you prepared for her reaction? As prepared as I can be, I said. She's been cycling through every manipulation tactic in the book. Right now she's stuck between blaming me and promising to change. Classic pattern, Tyler confirmed. Once she's officially served, expect the anger phase to intensify. She'll threaten, she'll make promises, she might even try to turn mutual friends against you. Stay the course and document everything. Saturday morning, I was at Marcus's place when Tyler texted, served at 9:47 a.m. Let the games begin. My phone started ringing within minutes, call after call from Stephanie's number. When I didn't answer, the voicemails piled up. I listened to them later with Marcus, both of us wincing at the progression from shock to rage to desperate bargaining. In the final message, her voice was raw from crying. I can't believe you're actually doing this. 4 years of marriage and you're ending it like this? No conversation, no counseling, just papers served at my door like I'm some stranger? You're a coward, Vincent. A coward who's too afraid to face me and have a real conversation about what's happening. But fine. If you want a divorce, I'll give you a divorce. And I'll make sure everyone knows exactly what kind of man you are, the kind who abandons his wife because she dared to have a life outside of his control. I saved the voicemail. Tyler would want it as evidence of her escalating behavior. That evening, my phone showed 32 missed calls, 17 voicemails, and 43 text messages. I didn't read or listen to any of them. Instead, I had dinner with Marcus and Emma, went for a walk around the neighborhood, and slept better than I had in months. Stephanie had asked for space to think. I'd given her enough space to realize exactly what she'd lost, and apparently, the view from there was devastating. Sunday morning, I woke up to discover Stephanie had found Marcus's address. I should have anticipated it. We'd been friends for years, and she knew he lived somewhere in the arts district. She probably drove around until she spotted my car parked on the street outside his building. The buzzer rang at 8:30 a.m., insistent and repeated. Marcus answered the intercom while I was making coffee, his voice still rough from sleep. Yeah. I know Vincent's there. I need to talk to him. Please. Stephanie's voice crackled through the speaker, desperate and demanding simultaneously. It's 8:30 in the morning, Marcus said flatly. You need to leave. I'm not leaving until he talks to me. I'm his wife. He can't just hide from me forever. I walked over and pressed the intercom button. Stephanie, go home. We have nothing to discuss. Anything you need to say goes through my attorney. Your attorney? Her voice pitched higher. You mean Tyler? Your friend who's never liked me? Who you're letting poison you against me? Vincent, please come down here. 5 minutes. Just give me 5 minutes to explain. I looked at Marcus, who shook his head in warning. But part of me thought maybe facing her directly would end this cycle of messages and voicemails faster than continuing to avoid her. I'll be down in 10 minutes, I said. We can talk in the coffee shop on the corner. Public place. Thank you, she breathed. Thank you. I'll be there. I dressed quickly, and Marcus insisted on coming with me. I'm not letting you walk into an ambush alone. I'll sit at another table, give you privacy, but I'm not leaving you unprotected. The coffee shop was mostly empty on Sunday morning, just a few people working on laptops and reading newspapers. Stephanie was already there, sitting at a corner table, and I barely recognized her. She looked exhausted, no makeup, hair pulled back messily, wearing sweatpants and an oversized hoodie I'd never seen before. Dark circles shadowed her eyes, and she'd clearly been crying recently. I sat down across from her while Marcus took a table near the window, close enough to intervene if needed but far enough to give us space. For a long moment, we just looked at each other, for years of history stretching between us like a canyon neither of us could cross. "You look terrible," she said finally, and I almost laughed because it was such a Stephanie thing to say, deflecting with criticism even now. "I'm doing fine actually. Sleeping better than I have in months." That landed like I'd intended. Her face crumpled slightly before she caught herself. "I don't understand how we got here. 2 weeks ago we were married, planning our future, and now you're serving me with divorce papers and acting like I'm some kind of monster. 2 weeks ago, you were planning a secret rendezvous with your ex-boyfriend while calling our marriage suffocating," I corrected. "You'd hidden $18,000 while I covered your expenses. You'd been systematically lying about your finances and your intentions. We were never what you're pretending we were. I wasn't planning a rendezvous." Her voice rose, then dropped when other customers glanced over. Connor being at the same retreat was a coincidence. Yes, we talked about both being there, but nothing was planned. Nothing happened. "Stephanie, I read the emails. All of them. Maybe the universe is telling us something. 10 days away from everything might give me the clarity I need." Those were your words. She flushed, caught in the lie. I was confused. I'd been feeling disconnected from you for months, and Connor, he reminded me of a time when things were simpler. But I didn't cheat on you, Vincent. I didn't do anything wrong. You hid money while claiming you couldn't afford to contribute to household expenses. You planned a trip months in advance while telling me it was a last-minute opportunity. You corresponded with your ex in ways that crossed every boundary of our marriage. You gaslit me into thinking I was the problem when you were the one checking out. That's not nothing wrong. That's systematic betrayal. She wiped her eyes, mascara-free tears tracking down her face. "You're right. I should have been honest about the account. I should have told you Connor and I were in contact. But Vincent, I was scared. Scared of how controlled my life had become, how every decision had to go through you, how I felt like I was disappearing into what you wanted me to be." "I never controlled you," I said quietly. "I worked 60 hours a week to build our savings. I paid our bills. I planned for our future. If you felt controlled by having financial stability and a partner who actually showed up, that says more about you than me. You made every decision without asking what I wanted. The condo, the car I should drive, where we should go on vacation, the condo I bought before we even met. The car you chose yourself and I paid for because your credit was terrible. The vacations I asked you to help plan that you said you were too busy for, so I handled it. Don't rewrite history to make yourself the victim." She stared at her coffee cup, fingers wrapped around it like she needed the warmth. "I know how this looks. I know I messed up. But doesn't our marriage deserve a chance at counseling? At trying to work through this? You said our marriage was suffocating. You said you needed space to figure out what you wanted. You got that space, Stephanie. You figured it out. The problem is, what you figured out, that you wanted the financial security I provided while exploring whether Connor might be a better option, isn't something I'm interested in being part of." "That's not what I was doing," she insisted, but her voice lacked conviction. "That's exactly what you were doing. And maybe you didn't think of it that way. Maybe in your mind, you were just keeping options open, or reconnecting with an old friend, or whatever rationalization made it acceptable. But the impact was the same. You treated our marriage like a backup plan while you investigated upgrades." She was crying openly now, not the pretty tears she'd perfected for getting her way, but ugly, genuine sobs that shook her shoulders. "I made mistakes. Huge mistakes. But I love you, Vincent. I do. And I'm terrified of losing you, losing us, losing everything we built." "We didn't build it together," I said, and the truth of that statement settled heavily between us. "I built it while you enjoyed the benefits and complained it wasn't enough. You contributed Instagram posts and resentment. That's not a partnership." "God, when did you become so cruel?" she asked, voice breaking. "I'm not being cruel. I'm being honest for the first time in months. You wanted me to fight for you, to beg you to stay, To prove through desperation that I valued you. But I'm not desperate, Stephanie. I'm done. Done subsidizing someone who sees me as an ATM with feelings. Done being made to feel inadequate for being stable and responsible. Done with a marriage where I'm only valued for what I provide. She reached across the table like she might take my hand, then withdrew when I didn't move. What about the condo? I can't afford to live there on my own with all these bills you stuck me with. The condo is mine. My property, my name on the deed, purchased before we married. You can either pay fair market rent to stay there temporarily while you find another place, or you can leave. Your choice. Fair market rent? Vincent, that would be like $1,500 a month. I can't afford that plus my car and everything else. Then you'll need to make some adjustments. Downgrade the BMW to something you can actually afford. Cut unnecessary expenses. Budget like an adult. Or maybe move back with your sister until you figure things out. Her face went pale. You're really going to make me homeless? I'm not making you anything. I'm establishing appropriate boundaries for someone who's about to be my ex-wife. You're not entitled to live rent-free in my property while we divorce. This is about punishing me, she said bitterly. You're angry, so you're trying to make me suffer financially. I'm protecting myself from further exploitation. There's a difference. The conversation circled for another 20 minutes, her cycling through denial, anger, bargaining, trying every tactic to find leverage. She threatened to contest the divorce, to fight for alimony, to tell everyone I'd abandoned her. She promised to change, to go to counseling, to be the wife I deserved. She accused me of being heartless, vindictive, cruel. Finally, she seemed to run out of steam. She sat there, deflated and defeated, staring at her cold coffee. I talked to my sister last night, she said quietly. Told her everything. The Connor emails, the account, all of it. You know what she said? She said I was an idiot who threw away a good man because I got bored and wanted drama. She said no one else is going to put up with my shit the way you did. Your sister is a smart woman. She told me you'd probably find someone else within 6 months. Someone who actually appreciates stability and planning and all the things I took for granted. That I'd spend years regretting this. Stephanie looked up at me, eyes red and swollen. Was she right? I thought about how I'd felt during those last months of our marriage, constantly anxious, perpetually inadequate, wondering what I could do differently to make her happy. Then I thought about how I'd felt this past week, lighter, clearer, like I'd been carrying a weight I didn't realize was there until it was removed. Yeah, I said. She was right. About all of it. Stephanie gathered her purse and stood up slowly, moving like someone much older than 29. I really did love you, Vincent. Maybe not well, maybe not the way you deserved, but I did love you. I know, I said and meant it. But love without respect, without honesty, without partnership, that's not enough. It was never going to be enough. She walked out without looking back, and I watched her cross the street to where she'd parked the BMW, the lease payment she couldn't afford, the status symbol that mattered more than financial stability. Marcus came over and sat down across from me. You okay? Yeah, I said, surprised to find it was true. I really am. My phone buzzed with a text from Tyler. Her attorney just reached out. They want to negotiate. I think she's finally understanding her position. Well done. I pocketed my phone and finished my coffee, feeling something that might have been sadness but was mostly relief. The woman I'd married had wanted space to think, and I'd given her room to regret. Now she was discovering that regret doesn't reverse consequences, and space, once created, can't always be closed. The hard part was over. Everything from here was just paperwork and logistics, the administrative ending to something that had died emotionally months ago. I just hadn't realized it until she'd given me permission to let go. The divorce papers were officially served on Monday morning, and by Tuesday afternoon, Stephanie had retained an attorney, Patricia Keene, a mid-level family law practitioner whose website promised to fight for women's rights in divorce. Tyler had anticipated this move and wasn't particularly concerned. Keene's competent but not aggressive, he told me during our Tuesday meeting at his office. She takes cases where there's clear inequity or abuse. Once she reviews the evidence we have, she'll advise Stephanie to settle quickly rather than drag this through court. The initial demand letter arrived Wednesday, and it was exactly what Tyler had predicted: aggressive positioning based on incomplete information. Keene was demanding 50% of the condo's equity, citing Stephanie's contributions to the household during the marriage. She wanted spousal support of $2,000 monthly for 5 years, claiming Stephanie had sacrificed career advancement to support my professional development. She was asking for half of my retirement accounts and investment portfolios. The total financial request would have left me essentially starting over, as if our 4-year marriage entitled her to half of everything I'd built before and during our time together. "This is standard opening strategy," Tyler explained, sliding the letter across his desk to me. "They're anchoring high so any settlement feels like a compromise. But they don't have leverage here, and Keene knows it. Watch what happens when we respond with evidence." Tyler's response package was devastating in its thoroughness. He included the complete email thread between Stephanie and Connor, with particular emphasis on the messages discussing their clarity and what the universe might be telling them. He documented the secret bank account she'd funded while contributing minimally to household expenses, including a detailed spreadsheet showing my contributions versus hers over our marriage, roughly $127,000 from me compared to $18,500 from her. He attached the evidence of her hidden assets and the financial deception that had characterized our marriage. Most importantly, he included an analysis of the condo's ownership, purchased 2 years before our marriage, with my down payment, my credit, my income qualifying for the mortgage. Under Colorado law, this made it my separate property, with any appreciation during the marriage being the only potentially divisible asset, and even that was questionable given her minimal financial contributions. The response to Tyler's evidence package was radio silence for 4 days. Then, on Monday morning, Keene called to request a settlement conference. Her attorney got the message, Tyler told me after the call. Keene said Stephanie has been reassessing her position and wants to resolve this amicably. Translation: they know they can't win and don't want the embarrassment of going to court. The settlement conference was scheduled for the following Thursday. Tyler prepped me extensively on what to expect. Stephanie would likely be emotional, her attorney would try to appeal to fairness and compassion, they'd paint a picture of her financial distress. "Don't react," he advised. "We're not here to punish her. We're here to protect you from being exploited further. Stick to the facts, and let me handle the negotiation." Thursday arrived, and I met Tyler at a conference room in a neutral office building downtown. Stephanie and Keene were already there when we entered. Stephanie looked better than she had at the coffee shop, professionally dressed, makeup applied, hair styled. She'd put her armor back on, but I could see the cracks underneath. Keene opened with pleasantries that felt forced, then got down to business. "My client acknowledges that some of the initial demands were ambitious given the circumstances. We'd like to discuss a more reasonable settlement that reflects the reality of the marriage and allows both parties to move forward." "I'm listening," Tyler said, his tone neutral but not encouraging. "We're willing to withdraw the claim to condo equity and retirement accounts, recognizing that much of this was accumulated prior to the marriage. However, Ms. Brennan needs support during her transition period. She's been financially destabilized by the sudden separation and needs time to establish independent living arrangements." "Ms. Brennan had $18,000 in a hidden account," Tyler countered smoothly. "That's more than adequate for a security deposit and first month's rent on an appropriate apartment. She's employed full-time, earning $52,000 annually. She's perfectly capable of establishing independent living arrangements without additional support from my client." Keene's jaw tightened slightly. "The hidden account, as you call it, was simply my client's attempt to maintain some financial autonomy in a marriage where she felt controlled. She shouldn't be penalized for trying to protect herself." "Protect herself from what?" Tyler asked. "From a husband who paid 92% of household expenses? Who covered her car payment, insurance, subscriptions, and lifestyle while she accumulated savings? If she felt the need to protect herself financially, perhaps that indicates she was planning to leave long before she claims to have realized the marriage was troubled." Stephanie spoke for the first time, her voice strained. "I wasn't planning to leave. I was scared. Vincent made all the financial decisions, controlled all the accounts. That's false, I interrupted, looking at Keen rather than Stephanie. We had a joint checking account that she had full access to. She chose not to contribute to it meaningfully. I never controlled her money or prevented her from managing her own finances. I simply paid for everything she wouldn't or couldn't pay for herself. Keen held up a hand. Let's not turn this into a debate about marital dynamics. We're here to discuss settlement terms. My client is willing to be reasonable, but she needs some form of transition support. We're requesting $12,000 in a lump sum payment, essentially reimbursement for her half of marital debts paid during the separation, plus 3 months of temporary spousal support at $1,500 monthly to help her stabilize. Tyler glanced at me, and I gave a subtle nod. It was more than Stephanie deserved, but it was also reasonable enough to end this quickly. We'll agree to the $12,000 lump sum, but not as debt reimbursement, as a general settlement payment. No spousal support, temporary or otherwise. My client will also agree not to seek reimbursement for Ms. Brennan's half of marital debts, which total approximately $4,200. She keeps her vehicle, her personal property, and her separate savings account. He keeps the condo, his retirement accounts, and his investment portfolio. Each party responsible for their own attorney fees. Clean break, no ongoing financial entanglement. Keen looked at Stephanie, who was staring at the table, tears tracking silently down her face despite her best efforts to maintain composure. Can we have a moment to discuss? Tyler and I stepped into the hallway, leaving them to confer. She'll take it, Tyler said confidently. Keen knows this is better than she'll get in court, and Stephanie's smart enough to recognize when she's out of options. 10 minutes later, we were called back in. Stephanie's eyes were red but dry now, her expression resigned. We accept the terms, Keen said formally. We'll draft the settlement agreement for review. The next 6 weeks were a bureaucratic blur of paperwork, signatures, and waiting periods. The settlement was formalized and filed with the court. Stephanie moved out of the condo and into a smaller apartment across town, funded by the $12,000 settlement. She'd traded the BMW for a used Honda Civic, a practical choice that probably hurt her pride more than anything else in this entire process. We had one final interaction, required by the court for the dissolution hearing. It was brief and formal, both of us standing before a judge who barely looked up from the paperwork as he granted our divorce. Stephanie had dressed carefully. A modest suit, minimal jewelry, the appearance of someone who'd been wronged but was handling it with dignity. I recognized the performance for what it was. Outside the courthouse, she stopped me before I could walk away. Vincent, wait. I turned, keeping my expression neutral. I'm not trying to start anything, she said quickly. I wanted to say I'm sorry. Really sorry. Not in a legal way or trying to change anything, but genuinely sorry for how I treated you, for the lying and the deception and making you feel like you were the problem when you were just trying to build something good. I studied her face, looking for manipulation or hidden agenda, but saw only exhaustion and what might have been genuine remorse. Thank you for saying that. I've been in therapy, she continued, trying to figure out why I sabotaged something that was actually good. My therapist says I have this pattern of devaluing stability because I grew up with so much chaos that security feels boring. That I equate drama with passion and mistake consistency for complacency. That sounds like important work, I said. I hope it helps you in your next relationship. She laughed bitterly. Next relationship. Connor lasted exactly 2 weeks after you filed for divorce. Turns out he wasn't interested in me so much as the idea of winning me from someone else. Once I was actually available, I became a lot less interesting. I'm sorry that happened. Don't be. I needed to learn that lesson. That the grass isn't greener, it's just different grass, and usually it's covering the same dirt. She shifted her purse on her shoulder. Are you seeing anyone? That's not really your business anymore, I said gently. But yes, I am. Someone who values the same things I do. It wasn't entirely true yet, but it would be. I'd been on a few dates with a woman named Claire who worked in data analytics at a company I'd consulted for. We were taking things slowly, but there was potential there. The kind built on mutual respect and genuine compatibility rather than physical attraction and wishful thinking. Stephanie nodded, accepting the boundary. Good. You deserve that. You deserved better than I gave you. We both deserved better than what we became, I said. But we can't change it now. We can just learn from it. She walked away toward the parking garage, and I watched her go with something close to peace. The anger had faded weeks ago, replaced by understanding. Stephanie hadn't been a villain so much as someone deeply broken who'd broken me in return while trying to fix herself. That didn't excuse her choices, but it made them comprehensible. A year later, I was standing in my condo, truly my space now, redecorated to reflect my actual tastes rather than Stephanie's aesthetic vision. The heavy drapes she'd insisted on were replaced with blinds that let in natural light. The impractical white furniture was gone, replaced with comfortable pieces I'd chosen myself. My grandmother's desk sat in the office, family photos on the walls, my personality finally visible in my own home. Claire was in the kitchen, cooking dinner while I finished some work emails. We'd been dating for 8 months, and she'd recently started keeping some clothes at my place, a natural progression that felt right rather than rushed. She appreciated my tendency to plan ahead, found my attention to detail endearing rather than controlling, and contributed equally to our relationship, financially, emotionally, practically. "Vincent," she called, "can you grab the pasta from the top shelf? I can't reach it." I walked into the kitchen and retrieved the box, watching her work with easy confidence in my space. She caught me staring and smiled. "What?" "Just thinking about how different this feels. Being with someone who actually wants to be here." She kissed me quickly, then returned to stirring the sauce. "Of course I want to be here. You're cooking tomorrow though." "Fair's fair." That simple exchange, the casual expectation of reciprocity, the assumption of partnership, was everything my marriage to Stephanie hadn't been. My phone buzzed with a text from Marcus. "Emma and I are engaged. Dinner this weekend to celebrate." I texted back congratulations and confirmed for Saturday, feeling genuinely happy for my brother and his soon-to-be wife. Marcus had been there during my worst days, had helped me pack up my life, had reminded me that I deserved better. Seeing him find happiness felt like proof that difficult endings could lead to better beginnings. Later that evening, after Claire had gone home and I was cleaning up the kitchen, I found myself thinking about Stephanie. I'd heard through mutual friends that she was doing better, still in therapy, dating someone who worked in construction, learning to build a life within her means rather than beyond them. I genuinely hoped it worked out for her, hoped she'd learned the lessons our failed marriage had taught both of us. My phone showed a notification, a friend request on social media from someone I vaguely recognized from Stephanie's college group. Vanessa, the woman who'd driven her to the retreat. I ignored it, not out of anger but out of disinterest. That chapter was closed, and I had no desire to maintain connections to it. I sat on my couch, new, chosen by me, comfortable rather than fashionable, and thought about the journey from that Monday afternoon when Stephanie had announced her retreat to this quiet Sunday evening in my reclaimed space. She'd asked for space to think, for time to figure out what she wanted, for freedom from what she called a suffocating marriage. I'd given her exactly that, but not in the way she'd imagined. The space I'd provided wasn't temporary distance with the understanding I'd be waiting patiently for her return. It was permanent separation, room for both of us to become who we actually were rather than who we tried to force ourselves to be for each other. She'd wanted space to explore whether something better existed. I'd given her space to discover that better isn't always different, and sometimes the things we take for granted are the things we'll spend years regretting. The irony wasn't lost on me that in seeking space for herself, she'd given me the space I'd needed, space to recognize my own worth, to understand that being stable and reliable and planning for the future weren't character flaws but strengths. Space to find someone who valued those exact qualities rather than resenting them. Stephanie had asked for space to think. I'd given her room to regret. And in that room, we'd both learned who we really were and what we actually deserved. For me, that lesson had led to peace, to Claire, to this life I'd built deliberately rather than desperately. For Stephanie, I hoped it eventually led to the same wisdom, even if the path there had been painful for both of us. The condo was quiet, mine in every sense now, and as I turned off the lights and headed to bed, I felt something I hadn't felt in years: contentment. Not the anxious happiness of trying to make someone else satisfied, but the deep, settled satisfaction of being exactly where I was supposed to be, with nothing left to prove and no one left to please except myself. Space, it turned out, had been exactly what we both needed. Just not in the way either of us had planned.